In 1922, British archaeologist Howard Carter stumbled upon something that was thought to be impossible: the tomb of the boy king Tutankhamun, who had ruled Egypt some 3,000 years ago. As soon as Carter opened the tomb, a series of unfortunate events began to happen, including several deaths, strange illnesses, and even financial ruin. What had the team done to deserve this? Was it something to do with the curse that supposedly surrounded the tomb? This is the curse of King Tutankhamun's tomb. Tutankhamun's tomb was discovered in the Valley of the Kings near Luxor in Egypt. It was here in November 1922 that Howard Carter discovered an entrance to a previously unknown tomb. After months of hard work carefully clearing away centuries of dirt and grime, he found the entrance to what may have been the most famous tomb of all time. But why? Because the markings on the walls showed it to be the final resting place of Tutankhamun, one of the most famous, but also one of the shortest ruling pharaohs of ancient Egypt. He had come to power when he was just 9 years old, allegedly at the behest of his father, the infamous Sek, and his mother, the great royal advisor Nefertiti, though some dispute the latter claim. He died around the age of 19, perhaps from malaria, and was succeeded by his advisors, I, and his wife, Tai. Despite his young age, he ruled for almost 10 years, and during that time, he turned Egypt's religious focus back to the traditional gods, after his father had tried to institute a new faith based around the sun disk. But the real reason everyone was so interested in discovering his tomb wasn't because of anything he did during his reign. It was because no one knew where it was. For hundreds of years, scholars had been searching for the burial place of the boy king, but they hadn't been able to find it. In fact, most experts believed it simply didn't exist, that his remains had been lost to history forever. So when Carter found the entrance to it in 1922, it understandably caused quite the stir. The media were quick to pick up on the story, and the public were clamoring to hear more about the discovery. Carter himself, however, was fairly about the whole thing. He'd been working in Egypt for over a decade, and had yet to make any major discoveries, so he continued on with his life as normal, exploring the tomb. On November, he descended into the burial chamber, becoming the first person in over 3,000 years to do so. There was a sarcophagus in the middle of the room, adorned with golden flowers and jewels, and beside it sat 2 mummies wrapped in linen, one of a girl, later identified as Ankis, Tutankhamun's wife, and the other of a stillborn child. But the main event was hidden behind a curtain at the end of the room, and when Carter pulled it aside, he saw it, the mummy of the boy king himself. The discovery of the tomb quickly became the talk of the world. People flocked to the area to get a glimpse of it for themselves. Many wealthy collectors offered huge sums of money to buy the artifacts found within, and the Egyptian government was raking in the cash from ticket sales. Everything seemed to be going well, but then strange things started to happen. One of the first people to die was Carter's financial backer, Lord Connor. They'd been exploring the tomb together, and he'd become increasingly concerned for his health. So he decided to go back to London to await news of its opening to the public. But on April 1923, he suffered a heart attack in his sleep and died. Rumors quickly spread that he'd been cursed, but it wasn't long before others met their demise, too. In 1924, one of Carter's colleagues, George Campbell, was visiting the tomb when he was suddenly stricken with a sudden and fatal illness. Then, in 1928, Arthur McNamara, another member of the excavation team, died from complications following an These deaths were all very suspicious, especially because those who died had been the ones exploring the tomb. Could they really have been cursed? Well, there was certainly some evidence to suggest that there was something strange going on. You see, although Carter and his team were thrilled to have discovered the tomb, they did so without actually obtaining permission to do so. They'd ignored requests from Egypt's Antiquities Department to stop their excavations, and when word got out about their discovery, they faced heavy criticism for not treating the site properly. In response to this, Carter's team hastily covered up the entrance to the tomb and left the area, promising to return when they could do a proper excavation. But nobody ever went back. Some believe that this was because they were afraid of whatever evil might have been lingering inside the tomb, but others insist it was simply because they wanted to keep it secret, so that they could continue to profit from it. What's interesting is that neither Carter nor anyone else on the team ever seemed particularly afraid of being cursed. Sure, they took precautions such as leaving offerings for the spirits that may have dwelt within, but they never expressed any fear of death or misfortune, and so far, none of them have died under mysterious circumstances. Perhaps the curse was only real for those who didn't respect the tomb enough. Others have suggested that the curse of the tomb may have actually been a media fabrication designed to attract more visitors to the site. That would certainly explain why so many people were convinced the curse was real. But what about those who died after the tomb was opened? Well, in truth, it's difficult to say exactly how many people met their end because of the supposed curse. Some reports put the number in the dozens, while others claim it is closer to 200. Most of these are tourists who came to visit the site and then died soon after. But there are also a few members of the press who wrote about the curse and then died mysteriously. Then again, there are thousands of tourists who visit every year and only a tiny fraction of them die. So it doesn't seem to be much of a curse at all. Instead, it looks like nothing more than a statistical anomaly. Of course, this doesn't prove that the curse isn't real. It's entirely possible that it only affects certain people. And so far, we don't know which ones those are. There is also the theory that the curse doesn't affect people, only their belongings. Since the tomb was discovered, many of the artifacts found within it have been stolen and sold on the black market. Most famously, the mask that had been placed over the dead Pharaoh's face was taken by treasure hunter Howard Weg. But shortly after, he began having nightmares about the curse of King Tut, and so returned it to the Egyptian government. Whether this was because he truly believed in the curse, or whether he was simply trying to save face after stealing from a museum is unknown. But what is known is that he had made plenty of enemies within the antiques business, and many of them would have happily seen him go. And sure enough, just weeks after returning the mask, he was shot by one of those enemies and killed. It seems that the curse of the tomb may indeed be real, but only for thieves and treasure hunters. It's likely that this is what happened to Lord Carnarvon. He'd heard tales of the curse, and had even written down the supposed rules that must be followed to avoid incurring its wrath. One of these was to never touch the treasures within. Yet despite knowing this, he apparently reached out and touched the bandages of the dead king. Shortly after, he became ill and died. Perhaps the curse was real and touching the mummy brought it down upon him. Or perhaps he simply picked up an infection from bacteria that had been preserved in the bandages for centuries. Whatever the truth, the curse of King Tutankhamun's tomb has lived on in popular culture ever since the tomb was discovered. It's inspired books, films, and TV shows, and people still flock to the site from all around the world, hoping to see it for themselves. But if you plan on going, you should probably watch your step. After all, you never know when the curse might strike again. Now, you need to watch what actually happens if you break a mummy's bones, or have a look at this.